And we're live. So hello everyone. Thank you for coming to watch our event today. The BGA is going to host a very interesting discussion on the topic of NFT presale strategy with some insight and feedback from some of the companies, games, and projects that have run their own presale and can share some insightful data with us. For those of you who are not familiar with the Blockchain Game Alliance, I'm going to start by a quick introduction, and then I will let Serena present our speakers today and run into the conversation. The Blockchain Game Alliance is actually a non-profit organization that is committed to promoting blockchain within the game industry. We are now over 150 members and still growing. Our goal is to spread awareness on how blockchain technology through non-fungible token, decentralized gaming, cryptocurrencies, and more can enable new ways to create, publish, play games, develop games, as well as to build strong community and engage players towards them. We're a strong advocate for diversity and more inclusivity of women in the industry, always trying to bring parity in our event as much as possible. We also, you'll see, run a lot of events with 100% women. And we are an open forum for individuals and companies to share knowledge, to network, to create business opportunity, to establish best practice and workshops, and etc. So the core activities of the BGA are essentially around networking, research and reporting, representing blockchain games company, and advocating for blockchain within the game industry. As you can see, we have over 150 members now, all from diverse sectors of the industry, of course, blockchain games, but also chains and protocol, press and media, investors, games, developer solution, esports platform, and much more. I wanted to give a big thanks to our sponsors as well, who are supporting the BGA: Animoca Brands, Ubisoft, Galaxy Interactive, MakerDAO, Algorand, Chromia, Matic, AMD, and Mobox. And here we're going to go through some of the examples of the recent activities from the BGA. So we have one-to-one interviews with industry leaders. We bring key people within an industry to share their knowledge and insight on a certain topic. We organized various workshops on thematics like DeFi, decentralized gaming, DAOs, legal topic as well surrounding NFTs. Once a month, we have also new member presentation event where all the companies who join get to present to the rest of the other members. And we try to always bring value to our members through different initiatives, such as inviting them with free tickets and free speaking opportunities to various online events. We are working towards more inclusivity of women in the industry and run a series of events where 100% of the speakers were actually women. And we had a very successful series of events since August around the NFT topic, bringing in the point of view and the insight from not only the game developer, but also like from the marketplace, from the whales and collectors themselves, and many key actors in the space. And we've seen large success and viewership on those events. That's pretty much it on my side. If you'd like to join the BGA, I invite you to follow us on Twitter, on Medium, or apply on our website. And without further ado, I'll let Serena, who is our host today, introduce our speaker for this event.
Thank you so much, Seb, for this fantastic presentation and introduction about the Blockchain Game Alliance. And welcome to our speakers. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here today. Hello.
Hi, Serena.
So, hi. So we're going to have a quick intro from you guys so that you can give us a few words about who you are and, about your background and the company that you represent today. So I guess today we are starting with Sean. Hi, how are you? Just getting on the screen. Can you hear us? Sean, can you hear us? I'm just going to get on my screen.
Yes.
Wonderful. So can you give us a
okay?
quick intro? Yeah, I can hear you now. If you'd like to give us a quick intro about yourself and your background. Thank you.
Sure. So I currently head up through the Animoca Brands Hong Kong office a number of the initiatives, what we're basically doing through blockchain. My background is primarily in games from like the last 15 years or so, and actively as of today, I kind of lead the product development for F1 Delta time. The upcoming MotoGP title, and also our recently released currency of our ecosystem, which is the Rev token as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's great to have you here today. And then we welcome Mark from the Sorare team. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, hey Serena, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, my background is slightly different. I'm an investment advisor by profession. I've only recently stumbled into the world of blockchain crypto in 2018. Got a passion for sports. I've got a passion for collecting. Hence, I've started to build an NFT portfolio. So I consider I've kept my ear to the ground with quite a few of the projects that have been out there over the last couple of years. And yeah, just happy to share my insight with what I've picked up along the way and what I've learned from others.
Thank you. It's great to have you. And then we welcome Arielle. Hi, yeah. How are you?
Hello. Good, thanks. So my name's Arielle Brechisci. I've been with Worldwide Asset Exchange since day one. I've been in a variety of roles here, primarily content, but also community and marketing and a few others. My background is in marketing. I have a degree in journalism, but I've been in various marketing management roles for the last 10 years or so. And yeah, Wax is really focused on NFTs right now, as I'm sure everybody knows. So this is a perfect panel topic for us, and happy to be here.
Fantastic. So thank you so much for being here. So I would love to start the conversation and talking about the NFTs Presale strategies that introduce the topic for today's panel. So as we know, there's been a number of pre-sales events, and even today, I think there's quite a lot going on in terms of the organizations that you guys represent today. So to start with, I would love to address the question about bundle sales, card parks, and staking. And what is your pre-sale strategy? So maybe we can start from Mark, if you like, to give us your opinion about that.
Yeah, sure. I think you've got to look at it in two ways. You've got the way in which you bring an NFT to market, but you've also got how, from a technology standpoint, people are able to access the first NFT offering. So whether it's bundles or whether it's auction-based NFT sales, if you're asking everybody to turn up on the same time, to all press a button, to have multiple tabs open, then I think it's very, very difficult to have any form of longevity in what you're selling, because you're automatically setting yourself up to divide those that are able to participate in a pre-sale and those that aren't. And where I think I've found my lane and where I feel more comfortable is participating in pre-sales whereby they just feel more fair and equal for everybody getting involved. And whether that's NFTs that are staggered over a period of time, where we don't have to suddenly all be at the front door at the very first second when the bell rings, I feel, yeah, these are the ones that, for me, allow me to explore the value side rather than just jumping in and thinking, right, well, I'm first there, let me buy as much as possible because I'll better then try and shift that onto the next people that turn up week, 2 weeks, 5 weeks down the line. But from a Sorare standpoint, what I've enjoyed, I act as the pivot between the main community of managers and the team that are developing out the product. And I think the consensus is that slow and steady wins the race. You know, if you turn on the Sorare transfer market at the moment, you'll see a constant flow of auctions. We're up to about 10 or 12 per hour now. We have special sessions once per week where we have, you know, maybe what we call a power hour, where we have 60, maybe up to 120 different NFTs available within a shorter space of time. But the point is that people can come in to the game and they can play at their own speed without feeling, right, game, oh, it's 8 o'clock, there's a drop going on at this particular game, I've got to be there. And if I don't get in, maybe I'm going to miss out, and you know, maybe it's not worth me going back again in a few weeks' time. So my philosophy is slow and steady, and I prefer to look at NFT offerings which allow me to go in, do my own research at my own speed without feeling as though I've got to get involved on a particular time and I've got to make my decisions quickly.
I understand your views. Yes, Mark, thank you for sharing that. On the other hand, I know that card pack sales have been quite successful, and I would love for Arielle to tell us more about the garbage pail kits, because I think it was quite an interesting initiative. And how did that go? And what was your pre-sale strategy on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer the initial question, our strategy has been primarily with card packs. But the strategy itself for marketing the presale really depends on the IP partner. So as you probably know, we've worked with a number of IP partners, everybody from William Shatner to Topps with their Garbage Pail Kids brand. We have Capcom coming up soon and a few others that we haven't announced yet. And for that reason, because we're working with so many different brands, it's not like we just have one game or one audience. The presale strategy really depends on who it is that we're working with, what their goals are, and the audience of the partner's IP. So we want to get, so the reason that we're working with a lot of these mainstream brands is because we want to get non-blockchain enthusiasts who are fans of that brand involved in NFT sales, which I think is the goal for a lot of companies. But that's been our strategy for focusing on some of these, kind of mainstream household names. And when you get involved in that, it comes down to identifying the target audience of not just the IP partner, but who's buying these NFTs, and then seeing how you can drive the most interest in the sale, not just among the traditional NFT collectors, but also people like fans of William Shatner, who, as we saw that commented on his Twitter posts about the sale, a lot of them were middle-aged women. So how do we work with everybody, to make it so that it becomes inclusive of the entire, of the IP partners audience, as well as the traditional wax NFT audience. For Topps GPK Series 1, that was our first major NFT sale, and we didn't know what to expect. So we just went the route of traditional digital marketing alongside the Topps marketing team. But then you had a project like Blockchain Heroes, where Joel and Travis from Bad Crypto, they had a really clear idea of how they wanted to see the pre-sale play out. So they really just ran with their own marketing strategy, and they did a tiered sale, which was different for what we had done with GPK, which worked out really well for them. And over to Mark's point, it did allow more people to participate in the sale when we had a tiered sale. So we're experimenting. The pack sale has definitely been the way to go for us. But as these NFT sales evolve, and as we meet the needs of our partners and what we anticipate their audience's needs are, we'll evolve as we move forward with those.
I see. And Sean, sorry, can you tell us a bit more about the staking, which has been something that we've seen over Medium posts and social media recently?
So what staking is, just to introduce the concept very briefly. So obviously what we're doing with F1 is, and it's obviously integral to how staking works, right, is that we recently released our own token, which is the Rev token. So that's an ERC20, it's on Ethereum. And the purpose of that token is to connect multiple games together. So one of those games is the one that we've got out that's kind of in its most mature state, I guess, right now, although it's still very much a project in development, which is F1 Delta Time. So essentially what players can do today, people who came in during our pre-sale periods, and we have numerous kind of versions and iterations of that, they're able to take the assets that they own today, which is purely focused on cars for the time being, and essentially send those to a contract where they are going to get, and they in return for that, dividends in the form of Rev. So essentially they're earning ERC20 by leveraging their NFT. And the amount that they're going to be earning is based on kind of the scarcity of the NFT, the market value of the NFT, and we've derived kind of a system that kind of grants a fair return on the whole scale of things for the NFT that they're trying to leverage. And we're doing that in kind of 2 runs. So ultimately it's going to be kind of around a 4-month period. We're going to be allowing people to earn around 12 million Rev tokens back. And obviously what this does is that firstly, gives people a return on kind of being involved early in the pre-sales, which they were, and then additionally, it increases the value of the NFTs that they own as well, and the value of the NFTs that are on the marketplace too. So there are people who can leverage that additional value from staking to sell their NFTs, or they can stake them and get the rev return ultimately. It's player choice. It's still kind of an empowerment thing. It's still a value of the NFT overall.
I understand. Thank you for explaining that. And if we are looking now at the price, and we discussed our fixed price, direct purchase or auction based, one of many buyers, what limit or not? What are your thoughts on that?
So it depends on mindset, right? It depends on mindset. So
right, because I think it would be great to understand, what the audience expectations are and what, the Wax and Sorare and F1 Delta are actually offering, and what's that response, and how the audience is reacting to that. I think that's what we're discussing today. Yeah. How do we meet those expectations?
Something that was interesting with because when we did the pre-sales for F1, so we basically had three main types of sales for NFTs, right? So the first ones that we did is that we did these incredibly rare, scarce items, and we sold those in a traditional auction style, which has its benefits, because it means that it becomes like an extended event period where you can get numerous people engaged. But ultimately, depending on the sale of price, it can kind of price certain people out. We then did kind of another type of auction closer to our actual kind of large kind of random crate sale, where the price de-escalated, right? So it's kind of like a Dutch auction style. And what we were able to do with that event itself is that we turned it into a larger community event. So even if you were not necessarily participating in the purchase, you're able to participate in the event of that sale in a different way. Right, you could we had people come in and guess which cars would sell in which order. And then when it came to the crates themselves, there was participation, because there's already a value that had been understood due to previously selling through auctions. So they were able to come in and try and buy these loot boxes essentially, with an idea on what they could potentially get in return if they had the assets of value in what they bought, right? So there was kind of people coming in who definitely had an interest in just buying the game assets, and we had packages that catered people of curiosity at $20, $40, and then we had packages that were more at the higher end, and they were catering more to people who were essentially looking to say, okay, how much can I spend before I can sell it and get a return on my investment, essentially. And that was aided. People could make that assumption if they get the investment based on seeing previous sell prices through these auctions for similar types of content.
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm sorry, I was asking a question, but I guess you didn't hear that. Sorry about that. I was going to ask Arielle, what was your experience about fixed price direct purchase or auction based, and how did that work in terms of time limited sales?
Yeah, so we've done all for the pack sales themselves. Those have been fixed priced. It's been around $4.99 for a 5-pack and $25 or $30 for the or $25 for the 25 or 30 pack. And our experience has been every sale is sold out pretty much immediately. The first NFT sale was for Topps GPK, and that was 28 hours, and then we've gone down to 9 minutes. So as far as the pack sales go, the fixed price seems to be the way to go there. And then they're reselling on the secondary market. I mean, the first GPK Mega Pack sold for $25, and now they're selling for over $700 on the secondary markets. So we've liked to see that as of our traders. As far as the secondary market sales go, some of the marketplaces, the secondary marketplaces, are experimenting with auctions, which we've seen doing well. But as far as primary sales, which is we're most involved in, fixed price sales has been the way to go.
And has there been any sort of feedback from your audience, from the users being active on the platform, and how the WACs respond to that? Because I think it would be interesting to see whether these comes from the company or is actually from listening from the users and audience on how the best like
so
to
we get a
interact.
lot of feedback from our community. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But on this particular topic, not so much. There's other partners that are there's other IP brands that are launching NFT sales on WACs that aren't necessarily working with us. They're just doing it independently. And I think we'll see some more strategies related to that, and we'll take a look and see how they go. But for the ones that we're partnering up with another brands for, a lot of it is also kind of like what they want to see. So especially since this is a new space, I think there's some security that comes with it being a fixed price and less ambiguity in terms of profit for them there. But we'll see how some of these other NFT sales do that are not directly involved with us. They're just using our tools to launch on our chain.
Understood. And Mark, how has the audience responded to the crate sales versus the more transparent sales? Items parts versus full parts. I know this is something that relates to F1 Delta as well, but what's the point at Sorare?
Well, I think there's merit in both sides. I mean, in terms of the way that Sean and Arielle have both said, they're thriving from the packs. I think it does go hand in hand also with the underlying motives of the company that's issuing the NFTs as well. And I think we're touching on it a little bit later in this conversation. But through the years, obviously, it's about finding companies that you can place your faith in, that you believe are going to establish themselves to be in this space for the long term. And then it's less important whether they package their NFTs up as bundles, whether they sell them individually. If you've got the belief that these NFTs are going to, withstand the test of time, then again, you can get involved in any which way you want to. From a Sorare standpoint, because they're now up to, I think it's 99 teams under license. It's an opportunity to provide each of those teams with a revenue stream and exposure into different parts of the world, which they perhaps don't get at the moment. So many of the teams in Europe that sign up to the platform are looking to expand their fan bases, maybe let's say into Asia or into America. And 100 teams, even if we did a sale of players for each team once per day, that's already a third of the year gone. So it's about dedicating the platform also to celebrate the players that they've allowed Sorare to license. And then from a purchaser's point of view, there are certain companies, certain clubs that require contractually them to put bundles of 5 players. So for example, with Cristiano Ronaldo for Juventus, there's a licensing clause, I believe, and so we cannot sell an individual Cristiano Ronaldo. That needs to be packaged together with 4 other players, but you can still see the other 4 players that you're buying alongside Ronaldo. But from a primary to a secondary point of view, I think what connects both is, the use of some really interesting third-party sites that are able to tap into the game's API and really produce some very interesting data in a digestible format that allows managers and gamers to buy with confidence. So the biggest thing that Sorare has going for it is another site called SorareData.com. And anybody that's a manager at Sorare has probably heard of Sorare Data, or if they haven't, they should do. And that allows them to really go and check the history of every single sale that's taken place to date. And again, in itself, that gives confidence because you can see at a glance, this player has got 50 copies of that particular player, and they all sold for this on the primary market. They all sold for this on the secondary market. So again, it's that liquidity aspect combined with how you purchase the NFT as well. But I think, as the others have touched on, whether it's bundles, whether it's auction sales, it's the complete package. It's the company that provides everything for the gamer that then installs the confidence needed to go ahead and purchase, or doesn't, and in which case, you know, perhaps they let those opportunities pass them by.
Thank you. Yes, I see. But now I would love to talk more about the game, you know, and see whether the more rewarding aspects influence the game or other way around. So are people here to play a game, or are people here for the reward? Sean, what are your thoughts on that?
There's always going to be two types of player, again, similar to the people who are purchasing, right? So there are some people who are definitely, and these are mostly, like, there'll be a very, you know, robust core chunk of players who are here to essentially try and find and get and acquire valuable assets to turn them into kind of earnings for them. That's going to happen. But the important thing for us is to be able to actually build a game that can be enjoyed by as many people as possible. Because essentially, one of the reasons why, and one of the reasons, you know, why gaming is interesting and why tying gaming to IP is interesting, is because it taps into a potentially massive market. And right now, the way that blockchain is that there's all this kind of potential there in how it can, you know, change the way that we kind of apply ownership and create content and kind of design experiences. But until we get to a much larger market, we're essentially going to be playing to this existing, we're kind of preaching to the choir almost, because we already have this very dedicated base of people who are already willing to come in, invest and play. But ultimately we want to kind of be able to expand that stuff. So the game itself, the product itself where people are going to be playing is incredibly important. And of course, what happens when there is a game experience or play experience in any capacity is ultimately it just adds value to any of the NFTs that people are purchasing anyway. So it doesn't take anything away from the fact that from those players or that player mentality where they're looking to essentially just flip the assets that they've bought for profit. They can still do that, and the game can be an incredibly robust, fun, enjoyable experience. Ultimately, all it does is end up adding value to everything that connects to it.
How about, Arielle, do you measure the success of your recent collectibles launch? I know you touched upon the secondary market and the auctions versus fixed price, but I would love for you to share, if you could, some stats about the success of the primary and secondary market.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as the reward of the game, I think you know, for us, for our NFT sales, the reward is the game. So that most of our NFT sales have not been a part of any game. They haven't been you know, they haven't been NFTs for a specific purpose. It's the trading, the buying, the selling, the market movement that's really been you know, the driver and the reward. So with the exception of a few, like the COG sale a few weeks ago and the Dark Country sale that's going on today, which are NFTs that are used in game, most of ours have just been collectibles, which has really been interesting. As far as the success of our primary sales, so the first one that we ever did, which, you know, we really didn't have any, you know, anything to base the success metrics on, that sold out in 28 hours, which we thought was just mind-blowing for us. That was a 12,000 card packs with 110,000 NFTs in those 12,000 packs. And then the next sale sold out in 67 minutes. So we were initially blown away by 28 hours. And then the GPK Goes Exotic sale sold in 67 minutes. And that was actually even more. That was 240,000 NFTs in an hour. And then the William Shatner sale came along, and that was 135,000 NFTs, and that went in 9 minutes. So, you know, the success that we've seen has really been incredible, and has driven a lot of interest in Wax. That's why we, you know, we're calling ourselves the king of NFTs now, because we really have, you know, we've certainly dominated the primary and secondary market. The secondary market sales are nearing $2 million at this point. So it's been, you know, the secondary market activity is considerably more than the primary market, just because the primary markets are limited, which, you know, really helps drive the demand for the secondary market sales, given the rarity of the NFTs that are in the primary market sale.
Yeah, and if you could highlight, you know, what the secret ingredient to this successful formula is, how would you say this is made of?
Yeah, so a few things. Working with the right partners has been definitely instrumental for us. I mean, when we started working with Topps, GPK already had a really active trading community among their for since I think 1985. GPK has been around, so
yeah,
you know,
I've been a fan for a long time.
yeah, exactly, yeah. But then you have someone like William Shatner, who obviously is an iconic actor, but you know, and he has the collectibles market for everything related to Captain Kirk and Star Trek, but not necessarily like a secondary market based trading community as his audience. But then that was the fastest sale that we've done. So you know, it's really been you know, working with the right partners, I would say, but then also just making it really easy. So again, I mentioned in earlier that we're onboarding people that don't know blockchain, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing for everybody. It's a good thing for the space. So a lot of the GPK traders, they've been trading physical cardboard trading cards for years, but you know, blockchain and NFTs was completely new to them. So how do you make it easy for somebody like that, or for a middle-aged, you know, suburban woman who's a fan of William Shatner? How do you make it easy for her to get a blockchain wallet and to, you know, start trading these NFTs? So ease of use has been something that we've focused on, both in front end design and the tools associated with buying and selling and trading the NFTs. And that's something that we've always really focused on at Wax, is how do we make it as easy as possible for anybody to use it, so they're not having to deal with you know, private keys and all of the complications of blockchain technology just to get this branded, you know, piece of memorabilia from a brand that they've been a fan of for decades. So I think that those are probably the two major ones. And then it also goes into scarcity, rarity, trading mechanics, game mechanics. So we published an article, how to launch an NFT sale on Wax, a complete guide to launching an NFT sale on Wax. So maybe that's something that we can share. And that goes into the specifics of how to have a successful launch and what goes into it, and, you know, marketing examples and rarity examples, and, you know, how you drive demand and things like that. So that really gives a pretty clear picture of what the secret sauce is for anybody who would want to do their own.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you brought up really good elements, and I'm curious now to ask Mark as well, because I know that fantasy football is something that, for example, I'm Italian, and I was telling Mark earlier on that everyone's crazy in Italy about football. So I would love to ask you more about how would you measure your success based on the pre-sale and the recent sales that you had at Sorare.
Sure. Well, I think as you just touched on there, I mean, fantasy football is global, and you know, whether it's in the States, well, I think the number's close to 75 million people playing daily fantasy sports, and then you've got very popular ones here in the UK, which, you know, are the talk of, you know, the water cooler at every single office. Well, they were until people started working from home. And what we're doing, or what Sorare is doing, is absolutely no different, but bar from the fact it's the first company of its kind to gain the licenses to do this successfully on the blockchain. In terms of secret sauce, I think where they excel for me as a gamer is their ability to listen and communicate with those that they're working with. So, you know, in its very early stages, in March of 2019, I was invited to be one of 30 beta testers of the product. We were given a sandpit of just Belgian Jupiler League teams, which for most, even most ardent of football fans, Belgian football is probably not something which you spend your time watching of an evening or on the weekends. But between the 30 of us, we really engrossed ourselves in with Belgian football, and from the game point of view, really helped provide valuable, you know, feedback to the team that allowed them to keep making new iterations of the game, make it more popular, make it more appealing then to go out and obtain licenses from other football clubs and leagues around the world, which is where it is today. And you know, I know that the goal over the next 12 to 18 months is for Sorare to sign up all top 20 leagues globally. Where they're at the moment is they've got the Belgian League, they've got the Japanese League, the K-League, they've got the MLSPA, they've got multiple teams from the Serie A in Italy, from La Liga in Spain, from the Portuguese Liga, Premier League, and you can start to see it now snowballing. And where we were in February 2019 as a small group of individuals, you could see the average price for one of the entry-level cards being close to $3 to $5. We've got different scarcities of cards, and the highest scarcity, or the most scarce card, the unique cards, would ordinarily sell for between 1 and 2 ETH back then. And you can see as more teams have joined the platform, as more managers have joined the platform. I think last week there was a record 14 or 1,500 managers playing in one of our Division 4s, which is a lot of managers in terms of where we sailed over the last 6 to 12 months. And you can see that the price of average rare cards now is closer to $30, $40. So we've seen quite a large rise, but it's not been highly volatile with big spikes. It's been very gradual, in line with new managers that are joining the game to play. And we've got regular sales now on the secondary market of between 5 and 30 ETH for some of the really prized, desirable cards, which, again, last week there was well in excess of $30,000 to $35,000 worth of prizes amongst the leaderboards. And with football now returning back in Europe this weekend, it's the first weekend as a gamer for me now. I've got 25 different tournaments I can enter, and well over $50,000 worth of prize cards and prize ETH to be won. So I can only see fast forwarding another 12 months if they continue to listen to the growing manager base and the community, which I know they will do, and they keep making new iterations which are in line with what football fans and fantasy football fans in general like to see. 12 months from now, who knows? I'd like to see the prices staying consistent. I don't think that's going to happen. And I say I'd like to see it consistent because I'd like to see it being more accessible to more people. But I also know that they're working on a free-to-play model as well, which again, once they start getting a nice conversion rate of those free-to-play managers, then they'll start dipping their toes into buying actual cards that will allow them to compete in the mainstream game anyway. So Secrets, again, just to summarize, is really listen to the community, which is what they've got the ability to do, and make small and incremental improvements, which over the medium to long term really do add up quickly.
Interesting. Yes, thank you. And Sean, I was talking to Alex from OpenC, the OpenC team, a few weeks back, and we were talking about the most successful NFT that sold on OpenC, and that happened to be a Formula One car. So I wanted to ask you if you could share with us some metrics about the success that you've seen over the pre-sale launch and how that go once on the secondary market as well, if you'd like to share some highlights of that experience.
Sure. So that car that Alex would be referring to would be what we call the 111 car, which is essentially the very first car that we released. That ended up selling for over 400 ETH ultimately. And then for the first it would have been around the first 8 months of the project. So when we were still kind of building out all the technology and stuff, we leveraged OpenC as a channel to kind of auction a bunch of different content, right? So we started off by releasing our basically making week-long events out of the sales of these incredibly, everything's an NFT, so it's unique, but all of these ones were they're in a very specific tier that we refer to as Apex, which means their statistics are kind of the highest that you can get. And we sold, a total of 6 of those 2019 season cars. So we had our Japanese car went for 91 ETH. I think the French car went for 90 ETH. And these were kind of things where we put around a lot of effort in engaging through our community as an expanded community to make sure that this was a large event that we can bring a bunch of people into, not only participate, but also just getting viewing it as on the sidelines, if you will. And one of the concept of events is super important because it's actually led to some of our more interesting second market kind of purchases and sales as well. So, for example, when we did our crate sale, we put essentially unlock milestones based on the amount of crates that were sold. So essentially, if we sold, I think it was after the first 2,000 crates sold, we unlocked to a lucky buyer one such of these Apex cars. And again, these already had a value proposition. We'd sold them for like over 90 ETH. So people understood, okay, these are and it could be super valuable to people. And obviously we went through the sale. One of those cars was given out to the lucky winner. And this past week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, that user who won that car, he actually sold it on the secondhand market for 39 ETH. So basically, from getting that kind of lucky draw of that top tier kind of car, he's now been able to just turn it around for 35 ETH, right? So he's essentially kind of turned that into kind of a lot of that can go into his pocket. But we've kind of, our secondhand market, like the secondary market itself, kind of ebbs and flows for us. We have, like, in regards to activity, so our assets have always remained to a pretty steady, consistent price in general. But we've seen a slight uptick now that staking's gone live, because now people see a different type of return potential. They're seeing, okay, I can actually get this Rev token that has an additional value by leveraging the NFT. So we've seen more cars kind of get transacted in preparation for, you know, leveraging on those systems. So like the secondhand market can kind of, there's ways that it can be ignited, and this is one of those ways to do it, that we're doing it through staking itself. But yeah, I mean, we've had a split between of around 50-50 between sales through our traditional crates, which are kind of directly purchased from us, and then sales through auction types of approaches, which we've kind of leveraged with OpenC. So that's kind of, you know, that's how important it's been to leverage that second marketplace. And the thing is as well is that when you are able to operate in that space, you're doing it alongside, you know, people are browsing, they're familiar with that kind of means of purchase, with that kind of interface, and you're tapping into a different audience than perhaps you may tap into if you did a direct sale as well. And then obviously we see like our players kind of also decide to auction their items as well, and they decide to bundle sale their items. Bundling is incredibly popular for a lot of F1 assets, and I think assets in general, is that people want to kind of buy them and then package them together. We see players kind of bundle them as because we have a minimum threshold of items needed to play the game, so a car, a driver, and a set of tires. So we see people creating kind of item sets and selling those as bundles on the marketplace as well. So they're kind of creating their own kind of onboarding package to whoever might be interested in jumping in as well.
Mm-hmm. That made me think to a question actually I had earlier on, and I think I'll ask that to Arielle, because it's about when you buy, for example, something that you don't know what is going to be in there, so you unpack something, right? If you leave that package unpacked and you resell it, is there any more or less value to that or not? If you reveal what the content is, or
yeah, so the answer is it really depends. So I'll give you an example. The GPK Series 1 mega packs that sold in May, that 30 pack of cards is selling for between $700 and $800 on the secondary market. They were $25 to purchase. Some of the cards that have been within these packs have sold for $3,000, $4,000. So some of the cards that are in them sell for a couple of pennies. This is, you know, the US dollar value in wax. So it depends. I mean, there's some really rare cards in some of these packs. If you have an Atom Bomb sketch card from GPK Series 1, I mean, the most recent one that I know of that sold for a high price was $3,200, 58,000 wax. So in that case, it's selling for more than you would get on the secondary market for the pack. Other series, other brands that we partnered with have different have different rates of return on the NFT sales, but we have seen that for the rarer series, the selling them on the secondary market has been a pretty good, selling the packs, the unopened packs on the secondary market has been a pretty good, go-to kind of very low risk strategy for getting, what is that, many hundreds, many thousand times your return on having bought the pack on the primary sale.
Right, I see. And, talking now about audience expectations and what kind of feedback you got in general, and this is a question for the three of you, I'm curious, once you got these great sales of things that people don't know what they're going to find out, once they got the NFTs, what's the response been? Have people been surprised positively or not? What was the general response? If you were going to kind of like give us some KPIs around that.
I mean, if you manage to get lucky with what you ended up buying, then people love it, right? So it depends on kind of the luck of the draw almost in some capacity. But yeah, I mean, we were very transparent in regards to kind of the chances that buyers were going to get these types of items, right? So if they were going to buy a crate, they knew the chance of that they would get a car or a driver, which are, let's say, our core assets in F1 Delta time. They got an idea if they like what that was going to be, which essentially works out to a 50-50. And then it was clear on the percentage chances that they were going to get for like high tier versions of these core assets as well. So and the total amount of these assets that were inside, these crates ultimately too. So, like for example, once all of the, I think we ended up so we sold 500. We put on sale 500 legendary crates. All of those were sold out, and they were all opened until all 35 of the kind of legendary cars were found. And now today there are kind of, I think, around maybe 10, 15, something like that, legendary crates currently unopened because they know that they don't include the cars. But the thing is that they've also retained close to that $500 value that they were originally purchased for as well. So I think like when it comes to kind of this type of kind of, this crate kind of approach to sales is the transparency on, what people are going to be able to expect from the purchases, right? It's kind of being very, very clear that this is what's there. This is kind of, the value proposition being put forward to you. And if they're aware of that, then you will have players come in and think, okay, cool. I know that if I spend X amount and I see on the market that if I get one of these cars, I can turn it into this, they make that calculation themselves and they come in and do it, because these players are, and I expect this is kind of the same for everybody here, but these players are incredibly savvy and they're super, super invested in what they want to buy, and they're going to do this research and look into it. And then around sale times, communities are incredibly active and they're sharing kind of all the ideas on like, okay, what is the chances for this stuff? What is the reality for these sales and things like that? So like it's ultimately the managing of expectation. If you do not win, like due to it being pure chance, there's always going to be a scenario where perhaps you do not get what you're looking for. But you start with being very transparent and very clear. And the thing is, you can kind of soften that kind of, the upset in some ways by, again, tying in different types of initiatives around the sales. So like we did with that, with the car giveaway. So even though you may not ultimately get what you were looking for in the crates, alongside that, you're getting a number of entry fees into this lucky draw system that could ultimately reward you in the end anyway.
Okay, that's an interesting perspective that you shared with us. Mark, did you want to add anything on that point? What's the experience at Sorare? I don't have
much experience when it comes to purchasing out of blind packs, but though I'm not representing them today, I have recently got more involved in NBA Top Shot, which is another sporting NFT-based game, and so I have been through that experience of opening up the packs. I think if I looked at it from my own selfish personal motivation, the only reason I did it was because, again, I felt as someone that got invited to the beta testing, it was a no-brainer. It was the start of a new project. It had the backing of a licensed sporting franchise. And what's the worst that can happen? You know, even if the company doesn't fulfill on their promises, well, if I'm one of the first through the door, it's a hot potato. I can pass it on to someone who's second through the door, third through the door. And that might not be the mentality of everybody. There will be some hardcore gamers that will support the company. There will be some hardcore gamers that like the sport in question. For me personally, basketball, I take it or leave it. But I knew the pack odds, as Sean said there, in terms of before I opened them. I knew that if I opened the LeBron James, then great, I've more than paid for my purchase. But I also knew that because I was first through the door, there was a very strong chance that I could just pass on whatever I didn't want onto somebody else who wasn't fortunate enough to get a beta invitation. And whilst that's, I say, nice from a selfish point of view, I don't know whether or not that's going to be the foundation to build a strong community from, because again, if you're setting yourself to potentially disappoint, and yet as we've heard, you know, there are ways that you can soften that with other rewards and other incentives. But if somebody comes to purchase an NFT from you from the very first time, and there's a chance that they're disappointed, well, that again, it then crosses the line, doesn't it, not to being more speculative, being gambling. And therefore, the type of person that is going to appeal to is going to be a trader with perhaps less underlying interest in the game or the company that's building the game behind it. But again, that might call me old-fashioned. I might just be being a bit cynical.
That's interesting. Thank you. I have a couple of questions here coming from the audience for Arielle. So the first question is, when Street Fighter on wax?
When Street Fighter on wax?
Topic.
Yeah, it's coming up. It's coming up. I don't want to give a definitive date, but it's going to be before the end of the year. I have a to-do list right over here on the corner of my desk that has a lot of Capcom related tasks on it. So I'll say that. But yeah, team's hard at work on that. Really excited for that. That's going to be a cool one. That's got some really good trading mechanics. The artwork is fantastic. It's going to be really exciting.
Mm-hmm. And another one coming up for you about Marvel involvement with wax. Anything you can reveal about that?
Yeah. So let me see. There was I don't know his name off the top of my head. We do have a Marvel member on our council. Jay Ong, Executive Vice President and Head of Marvel Games, is on the Wax Advisory Council. We are also going to be developing a set of NFTs for the Marvel Games team, and that's our involvement with Marvel at this time so far.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, before we conclude this talk, I just wanted to wrap up and talk about the managing expectations area and asking everyone, how do you see the NFTs market evolving? And do you think that staking or blind sales are here to stay or just a trend?
I think that, the most obvious answer to that question, I think, is, as far as how the NFT market is going to evolve, is I think we're going to see exponential growth in the near term and midterm and long term future, just based on what we've seen in our experience as a company with in-game digital items, and even while it's a niche industry, just the unbelievable sales and transaction numbers that this niche community, goes ahead and makes, their passion, their obsession, whether it's in game or out of a game. We've really seen just this enthusiasm for trading digital items even outside of the blockchain space. So if you take a look at that and you see, you look at the similarities between what we've seen in years past in a centralized fashion, and then you see kind of the trends that the NFT market is in parallel with, if you could compare those numbers, you're looking at, eventually the same market size or even larger than video game virtual items, which as it is right now is $170 billion a year. So global video game revenue, in-game item revenue is gigantic. When you consider, especially when you consider that it's pretty much all profit. So if you think about how the NFT market is going to evolve based on that, I think that we see a really, really profitable future for everybody involved. So that's, that's kind of my initial answer to that question. I'll let others chime in as well.
Thank you. Yes, and I'd love to hear from Mark as well.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts?
It's here to stay, and it's growing. I mean, the fact is that the demand for good quality content, whether it's a pure collectible, whether it's a collectible that has utility, the demand far outstrips the supply that's going on the market at the moment. I think we just need to make it better for everyone that's getting involved is to make sure that there are suitable levels of accountability for those that are distributing, creating the content in the first place, because it's the Wild West out there, and there are some great companies out there with amazing intentions, but with a flick of a switch you can disappear in this industry. And I think again it's following those trends. People that have been involved in crypto for many years now can accept that. I mean, they've taken the rough with the smooth for many years, and they believe obviously the market is going to go exponentially higher and we're all going to live happily ever after. But I think the people that, if I'm right, that Wax, Sean, you guys over there, you're appealing to are people that perhaps haven't yet discovered NFTs yet. And that's where I think Sorare, for me, is starting to really turn the tap up in the right direction. Is that up until probably 6 to 12 months ago, 60–70% of the players that were buying the NFTs at Sorare and player cards, they had some level of crypto experience. And right now, coming into the new season, those numbers have really reduced. And I would say we're probably closer to 30 to 35% now of managers that have got crypto experience. And they're being outnumbered by pure fantasy football specialists that are coming in, and they're pricing these NFTs very differently. They're valuing them very differently, not valuing them based on hype and pass the parcel and pass it on to someone else in a few weeks' time for 50% more. They're really taking their time, but they're spending big money on the utility of what these NFTs can provide them over the course of a football player's career. I mean, some of the highest value cards that we've got in the market at the moment are very young, 15, 16, 17-year-olds that are breaking through at major European clubs. And if you think about owning maybe a physical Panini sticker back in the 70s or 80s, and then seeing how some of these have gained in value over the last 20, 30 years, having a digital version of that card, but now being able to enter into competitions every single week without an entry fee. There's people now that say, well, I can justify paying 5 ETH for this card. I can justify paying 10 ETH for this card, because that card could be with me for the next 10, 12, 15 years. Yes, it's pretty to look at. Yes, it'll sit nicely in my collection if I'm a fan of that particular player or particular team. But guess what? I can play it every week and compete against other fantasy football players like I do, perhaps, domestically, through a newspaper, through another online medium. But the blockchain now, with the scarcity element added to it as well, opens up so many more possibilities. So, just getting back to the beginning, we've got far too much demand out there for the supply that's being put onto the market. But my hope is that there are companies that are going to act responsibly, because there haven't been in the past. And that has the potential to kill a lot of the industry, because a lot of the people that will go from one NFT game to another will do so en masse because of recommendation and strength in numbers. And I'm sure when F1 Delta started up, or when GBK started up, it was because they had a cult following of people that already really supported them. And it's important that those people that can attach themselves to other communities welcome them to the fold, so that, again, all of these games have a chance to mushroom together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a curious point that you've raised, Mark. And I think, blending the communities and finding strength in that, it's definitely key to how the market will develop. And Sean, your thoughts about how do you see the market evolving, and are staking and blind sales here to stay or not?
Yeah, both definitely are, right? Because they kind of work and they're exciting. The thing is, we're only scratching the surface of leveraging blockchain in adding value, right? So staking is one such concept that does that. Concepts that have been around for a little while but are still kind of really fleshing themselves out is the idea of owning land assets as well. So we have our own type of land asset in F1, where we're going to actually have people be able to own tracks, right? And if you own a track, anytime anybody races on that, you are going to also earn rev token for that as well. So like any asset ownership becomes an earning point for you as a player. So you don't only play to earn, ownership earns as well alongside that. But then it's kind of taking into like exploding concepts like let's say abstracts of DeFi, right? And ways that those kind of ideas and premises can tap into creating different value propositions within games, right? And the thing is like taking on stuff like this, like leveraging staking and leveraging kind of crates or setting aside auctions, doing land sales and land ownership and dividends through ownership. None of those functions, none of those designs detract in any way from the type of game experiences that you can build and the type of content that you can tokenize as NFTs either. So it's as we already have kind of this concept and this understood concept and agreed concept of like value of an NFT and kind of like value stored within a non-fungible token, a unique asset. So now it's okay, how much more, what happens when we then start to build the economy around those and the features around those where they then gain more value, they then can be leveraged in different ways. We then have true interoperability where you can take this asset into this game instead. So we're going to have that when you're able to kind of leverage your Formula One cars to give you some form of benefit in our upcoming MotoGP title. And then you're going to be able to play both of those titles by whatever rev you've been able to kind of acquire through ownership or play. So it's like on top of the ownership of assets, there's so much value that's going to kind of be introduced into them when we actually start kind of leveraging all these other possibilities that we can get through kind of, what blockchain innately provides.
Super, thank you. Well, I need to thank you all for joining the BGA today and talking about such interesting topic around pre-sales and audience expectations. And it's been a very good insight through what Wax, Sorare and F1 Delta are currently doing and how you guys are envisioning what's happening in the market. So thank you so much for joining myself and the BGA today. And thank you everyone watching this live conversation. If you do have questions, please send them through on social medias. We'll be happy to continue the conversation there. But once again, Arielle, Mark, and Sean, thank you so much for being here today. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys.
Thank you.
Likewise, thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's keep in touch. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.